So here's the benefit of there's not a lot of benefits of the fact that you're not a listener to the ever growing and very popular What's Right with Nick Wright podcast hosted with my son DeMonze. One of the benefits is you're going to get to hear this story for the first time. Subscribers and listeners got to hear it yesterday.
Oh, okay.
Subscribe on YouTube.
Okay.
All right. Saturday night for the Super Bowl, I'm at one of the many Super Bowl parties.
Of course.
You've met my wife. She's with her best friend. Both beautiful women. As often is the case, whenever we go to like some, nightclub type place, we haven't been in there 5 minutes. And all of a sudden, some group of fellas have been like, hey, we have a section. You guys want to sit here? They're wearing heels. So they're like, yeah. My wife then says to me, do you want to sit? I'm like, no, I'm going to go ahead and not sit in these fellas section who invited you in because you're beautiful and they have no idea we're together. You guys go ahead. I'll have fun. Circle around. UFC fights on a giant screen. So I'm just standing kind of close to the section, watching the UFC fight, having a few cocktails. At some point, after I stood there a while, a woman walks up to me, says, can I ask you a question? Like, of course. Why do you talk so bad about Jelan Hurts? I'm like, well, I don't know that I do. And, I do a little tap dancing. And she's like, no. And she seems to have some very quotables. Some I said, some I didn't. And I'm like, okay, okay. So here are the good things I've said. Here are the critical things I've said. I throw on some of that patented Nick Wright charm, and I figure we're going to be out of here quickly. Not budging an inch. And then I realized something Dan probably would have realized earlier had I not been a couple cocktails in. And I said, ma'am, may I ask you a question? She said, yeah. I said, are you Jalen Hurts' mother? She said, yes, I am. I'm like, God, dog it. I'm like, and I said, well, I'm now in a terrible position. She said, what do you mean? I'm like, well, you're his mom. I'm supposed to right now be like, ma'am, I'm so sorry. Your son's amazing. I'm playing a character on TV. Like, it's my job. Because you're his mom. I was like, however, I don't know if you respect me to begin with, but if I do that, you certainly won't. It's like, so now I feel like I have to say to you why I believe the somewhat negative things I've said about your son as a thrower of the football. And she's like, yes, go ahead. And Dan, when I tell you, I stood there for 15 minutes. Having a conversation about, like, listen, I thought he handled the benching at Alabama incredibly well. I think this. I was like, now, did I call him the weak link of the Eagles offense? I did. However, the context of that is I think they have a top two everything else. I think it's top two quarterback. And she really grilled me. And then I look to my sides and I'm like, I don't know if these are cousins, brothers, uncles, or whatever, but I'm now kind of flanked by what appears to be the Hurts family. And so she says to me at the end, she was like, what are you going to say? She didn't say it harshly. She said, what are you going to say when he wins? And because I'm me and I can't ever stop being me, I'm like, well, if he wins. She's like, no, when he wins. Yeah. And I was like, well, I got to see the game first, but then we'll see. And, it was nice. And I got out of it. I went outside sweating bullets. Didn't know. It was like, I don't know what just happened, but that's my night before the Super Bowl story, Dan.